Welcome to the DisabiliTEA, a podcast where we have candid discussions about all things related to disability. Short-term, long-term, financial claims, impact on other areas of life, causes in the workplace, and more. With your host, attorney Anjel Burgess. You can find this show at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of the DisabiliTEA, Anjel Burgess.
Hello and welcome to the DisabiliTEA. Today we are going to discuss the topic of children's disability benefits. Now, Social Security allows children who have a disability to receive benefits under the program known as SSI, which stands for Supplemental Security Income. Now, the way that SSI works is that it is a program that's based off of financial need. So if you have a child that is under the age of 18, then he or she may qualify for disability benefits as long as the family or household income falls within the guidelines required by Social Security. So the first thing that you will want to do if you have a child with a disability and you are curious about whether he or she would qualify for disability benefits is that you want to be aware of Social Security's income and asset requirements. When you fill out an application, Social Security is going to ask you as the parent to provide specific financial information. They are going to ask questions about things such as vehicles, how many vehicles you have, the type of vehicle that you have, the value of each of your vehicles. They will ask questions about your living arrangements. Are you living in a house? Are you living in an apartment? Do you own any property? Do you have any other assets, which include bank accounts? They are interested in the balance in your bank accounts, checking, savings, any 401ks, any sort of IRAs. If you own any other properties, such as rental properties, if you own land, if you have life insurance policies, any sort of burial policies, they want all the information. So just be prepared to provide a detailed, accounting of your financial picture. They also are interested in other sources of income that you may have as a parent, which includes income from working, so how much money you make in terms of your wages, if you are receiving any child support, if you are receiving any type of disability benefits yourself. So that could be from the Social Security Administration, that could be veterans disability, short-term disability, long-term disability, any sort of pension, anything like that. Social Security needs to know what your financial picture consists of. And what they will do with that information is they will look to see whether your child can qualify for disability benefits by considering the household. So the income of the parents is deemed, for the most part, income of the child or children. So they are also interested to know how many other children, minor children, there are in the household, and then they can determine whether or not your child will meet the financial or what they call non-medical requirements for SSI. Now, generally speaking, the SSI requirements, if we're talking about just an individual, would be $2,000. For a couple, it's $3,000. However, there are some more specific rules when you're looking at different types of income. So that's why it's important to consult with Social Security prior to, if you can, applying for SSI to make sure that your family does not have too much money in income or assets. Now, what happens if your family has too much money in income or assets? Well, your child cannot be eligible for SSI because it is a two-part requirement. You have to meet the financial needs or the financial requirements, also known as the non-medical requirements. And then, if that's satisfied, Social Security is going to evaluate the medical issues to see whether your child meets that component of the claim. So, parts 1 and 2 both have to be satisfied in order for your child to receive disability benefits. So let's assume that your family falls within the guidelines of meeting the financial requirements for SSI. The next thing that they are going to look at are the medical requirements. And so what Social Security does for children or for child's cases is they are comparing your child who is under the age of 18 to other children who do not have disabilities. So they are looking to see if your child is functioning in an age-appropriate manner or in a way that they would expect that other children of the same age are performing, or just how they're living their lives. So Social Security breaks down the ages into different groups. And so what they do is, based upon the age group that your child falls into, there are certain expectations that they have. For example, if your child is, let's say, 8 years old, they are expecting that your child can do things like, tie his or her shoes, respond appropriately to teachers, communicate their needs, things of that nature. And as the child gets older and older, closer to age 18, then there are additional things that they are expecting that your child is able to do. So Social Security evaluates your child as a whole child. And what they do with that evaluation is they have what they call domains of functioning. So for each child that has an application pending for disability benefits, they are going through each one of those domains of functioning to see how your child performs as compared to, again, children of the same age who do not have disabilities. So there are 6 domains of functioning. 1 is acquiring and using information. And in that domain, they are looking to see how well your child learns new things, how well does your child utilize or use the information that he or she has learned. And some of the examples that they use in this domain is they look at things like standardized test scores, like IQ scores, certain benchmarks that the schools will have for children based upon their age or grade. So they're looking to see, okay, as a teacher, if I'm trying to present information to this child, is the child going to be able to learn what I am presenting, or are there, additional supports that are required in order to allow the child to learn? So that's the first domain. The second domain is attending and completing tasks. And in this domain, Social Security is looking to see how well your child can focus, pay attention, finish things that he or she has started. They're really focused on that in this particular domain. So some examples of things that they will look at are they'll look to see what the teachers say about, can he or she finish their homework? Can they, listen in class without distracting their peers? Are they able to be redirected if they sometimes lose focus? Or does a teacher or someone else in a position of authority, is another individual required to continuously kind of monitor and help your child to stay focused? The third domain is called moving about and the third domain is called interacting and relating with others. And in that domain, Social Security is looking to see how well your child interacts with other people, which includes peers, teachers, other children, adults, people in position of authority, mom and dad, siblings, family members. So Social Security wants to see how well your child can interact and relate to others. So, do they have friends? Are they interested in having friends? Do they have reciprocal relationships with other people? Or is the child more so kind of immersed or involved with just being alone, and maybe the child prefers to be alone? So they're looking at those types of things. Are there any problems with violence or aggression toward other people, whether that's peers, teachers, other adults? So those are the types of things that Social Security will look at in that domain. The fourth domain is moving about and manipulating objects. And in this domain, Social Security is looking to see how well your child can do things like, can they walk appropriately and independently? Can they write? Are they able to take notes in school? They're able to write their name as they should be able to? Are they able to hold a pen or a pencil? Are they able to ride a bike, tie their shoes? So they're looking at not only their ability to sort of, ambulate and get around, but they're also looking at their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, to see if there are perhaps any problems with their extremities, with their fingers, with their hands. So they will look at those types of things in that domain. The fifth domain is called caring for himself or herself. And in that domain, Social Security is looking at your child's ability to express his or her feelings. Do they understand and recognize when they're angry? What do they do when they become angry? What to your child is appropriate? Is it yelling? Is it throwing things? Or is it saying, I'm upset, I need to take a break? How well does your child regulate him or herself and handle emotions? So that's what the fifth domain is about. Now, the sixth domain is called health and physical well-being. And with this domain, Social Security is looking to see how the child's conditions affect their functioning. For example, are they diabetic? Do they require, frequent trips to the ER to try to stabilize their blood sugar? Are there other conditions that require frequent medical intervention or intense medical intervention or frequent hospitalizations? So that is the health and physical well-being domain. So what Social Security does with each of these domains is they look at the evidence that they have for your child, whether that's school records, medical records, just any sort of evidence that they have, and they try to figure out how significant the impact of your child's conditions are on each of those domains of functioning. And so the way that it works is that the more severe the impact is on the child's domain of functioning, the more likely that the child is to qualify for disability. They have some specific verbiage that they use about the severity of the domains to figure out, if they have no limitation in the domain, if it's a less than marked limitation, if it's a marked limitation, or if it's an extreme limitation. So some of the factors that go into this analysis or that are helpful for Social Security to see when they're trying to figure out how severe the child's condition or conditions are is they're looking at, for example, because in a child's case, most children are in school. If your child has an IEP, they'll look at the IEP and see what information they can get from the IEP. Now, just having an IEP or a 504 plan alone will not qualify your child for disability. But what's important from those type of documents is for any sort of evidence that shows how severely the child is impacted. And I'll give you an example. A child that has, let's say, autism and has an IEP and is in a very small class setting may have really good notes about how the autism is affecting that child's functioning on a daily basis. Perhaps there is a paraprofessional that is charged with assisting your child throughout the day, making sure that your child stays on task. That paraprofessional may have to redirect your child repetitively and just work very intensely and closely with your child to make sure that your child can perform in a manner that the school finds to be acceptable. There may be some behavioral issues which prevent your child from interacting with other children. So those are the types of things that would be helpful for Social Security to know, because as they're looking at those domains, that will provide a much clearer picture. Now, once Social Security looks at those domains, they make an assessment in the child's disability case. It is common, doesn't happen every time, but it is common for Social Security to decide that the child needs to be evaluated by an independent professional. So what they will do oftentimes is send the child out for a consultative exam, and that could be a physical or it could be a psychological exam or both. And this is with a third party who is not an employee of Social Security and is not the child's physician or psychologist, but is just a third party that Social Security contracts with to evaluate your child. This individual will perform the evaluation or evaluations at no cost to you, and they will prepare a report and send that report to Social Security. Social Security will use that report and the opinions of that provider or the providers in making a decision in your child's case. So as you can see, there are a lot of complexities involved with children's disability cases. In fact, they are the most complex, and it's typically difficult to find representation in children's disability cases because the rules are not as clear and subject to a lot of interpretation in dealing with Social Security disability for children. In any event, my firm helps with children's cases across the country. We enjoy working with families to help get the benefits that they need. And so at any point in time, if you have questions about whether your child can qualify for disability, please reach out to our office. This podcast is also available on several formats for you to listen to, and let us know if you have any questions. We appreciate your time. This has been the DisabiliTEA, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the DisabiliTEA with Anjel Burgess. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.